Ready?
I'm not reading from it.
Okay. Hello.
Good evening.
Well, wow, March 21.
Already.
We've been working on stuff since August, maybe a little early. So thank you guys for being with me. I'm Peter Harris.
Carla Scama.
Before we do a sweet introduction, we want to do the library's land acknowledgement. The Altadena Library District acknowledges its presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Gabrielino Tonga peoples. Altadena is located on the stolen homelands of the Hamonga tribal band. Traditional territory of the Gabrielino Tonga is referred to as Tonga, which includes the area currently known as LA County, Riverside County, West San Bernardino County, parts of Orange County, as well as the 4 southern Channel Islands. So we want to we'll keep it short. We know that we have a conference crew here. This is I always want to use this word, penultimate event of our season. Carl will tell you what's coming up. Oh, that's right. No, it's not now. Well, of our season it is.
Yeah.
Because the
We
thing
added,
you
we
get ready to-
added.
That's right. So before we get to that, so today also is the official publication date for the Altadena Poetry Review, which is an online journal that our predecessor started. And we have maintained it. So today we announced that we published 52 new poems by 38 poets. All of these poems were written newly in what we call synergy with artwork by 14 artists who are on the website in something called a synergy portfolio. And we're really excited because we wanted to push our poet colleagues to write new stuff for us.
Not just visual art, it's also music and dance.
Yes. Yeah, so please, at your convenience, Altadena Poetry Review. And you can go and you can see the portfolio, and you can press on featured poets, and you can see all of them. We found a nationally poets caught a couple of typos. We are currently 50. Anyway, we're not going to read our couples of bios that are on your flyer, but we wanted to just make sure that we welcomed you here, letting you know this is part of a robust season of work.
So we wanted to tell you what's coming up next, so you can all come back on April 4th. As part of the Poetry Month celebration, we added an event, which is Angela Pena Gonza and Vicky Baptiste reading. And Vicky has a book coming out. That's going to be April 4th from 6 to 8 p.m. And then on April 29th, and there's a flyer about that. On April 29th, we'll have an event that's historically been part of the Laureate program called Poetry and Cookies, and it will feature readers from the Altadena Poetry. So Poetry and Cookies and that's April 29th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I think now we're just going to jump into our program for tonight, and I'm going to introduce the first poetry couple. I'm really excited to hear them read, all of them. And the first couple is Shireen Sharad and Ahmed Jamal Johnson. These are all very accomplished poets, so we hope they don't take the time to read their biography. Not during this performance.
Thank you so much for inviting us. We're really excited to be here and to be reading with these other wonderful poets. We already drew straws and decided that I would start first. So I'm gonna read, we'll go back and forth. I'm gonna read, we're gonna kind of set. We worked out a little bit for our duet here as couples. We haven't read together very often. We're both probably common fellows, and so if we were thinking, is that the last time we actually read together in person? And this is also the first time we've had read since the pandemic. Sorry, so in person, right? So everything. Which came out in 2020. The band. I'm just gonna read what I often post from this book. It's called Wild Beast. What color is Shakespeare? To answer, I read my son Dunbar. First, we recite We Wear the Mask. Then, when Melinda sings, we pause at the line from the kitchen to the big woods. When cooking with Melinda, her faintly breath is citrus and clove. Her hands rough as wind within, smooth as pears without. Guide me as I read and read for the seats aloud. Each line works itself in, solidifies her shade, elevates the timbre of her voice. She does not speak the broken tongue of Paul's ropesy news. Penwomanship alone affirms her education. Not until the poet delivers diamonds on, buried elbow deep in dough, do I forgive his lyric blasphemy. So this book of poems is found to the first cookbook by a woman, her name is Melinda Russell. She was a free woman of color, a pastry chef and cook who published this in the middle of the Civil War. She's a single mother and supports herself from her disabled son. So many of the poems in there have to do with different kinds of making, whether that's cooking or child rearing. And this was one, since we are doing a couple, it's one that talks a little bit about that, but also is a connection. I'm originally from LA. I was born and raised here, but spent 20 years in Wisconsin and only returned again during the pandemic. So this is a bit of a homecoming for me. So it's really wonderful to get to know the community again. Oracle at Venice Beach, 1995. Seeking an ancestral cipher against the grim statistics of racial math, we bypass the palm reader seated under the adjacent tent. I want to say that her dreadlocks, studded with the calories she would pass for us, brushed the ground like a cape. She knew your baby brother would turn vegan, then baker. That I would travel to a colder coast and be caught between two men. One would take my virginity, and the other would be my driving rod, but only if I kept quiet and discerned the one to love from the one to leave. There must have been more mundane news, birth or death, money and romance, the predictable ties of life. I forgot until you told me we hadn't spoken for a year, that it was aggressive and genetic, that she had warned you of female trouble, to not wait if you wanted offspring. Now, in the undercommons between girlhood and matronage, I absorbed her patois. Since the Cowley's warming in Memphis, she refused our money. She was not wrong. What else, remember, did she say?
If not, as in a wilderness thing. I don't want to be the animal. I don't want to be the one who pants and claws at the earth, who has to be lassoed down from a chain link fence because the smallest sound sets his jowls free, his heart on glass. Then seeing you as it's frozen again in an open field, the day collapsing like an embroidered veil. And how I want to charge until my whole body is a brushstroke of dust. Charge until my whole mouth falls open, until the frightened birds spray the sky dark as slump. I know better. But my ears are pinned back and my hair is wet and there's this business of caked dirt beneath my nails. And aren't the eyes also erogenous, swelling too with blood until they weep? Maybe it's best that I be put down. But say what you would have it. How else should I expect us to live? It would make sense to start with like a couple of love poems. So this one, so there's a comma. So there's a comma between the first and second word, you know, of the title. And it doesn't refer to what's the chronic album. Not as one measures the imagined music or jeweled light flooding any cathedral, but how this near dark north of you carries the morose and gaudy perfumes we make, which like sound too inevitably escape. Not that the body boils down to some cage, not a site of refuge or perpetual humiliation. And isn't our silence also the subject? Its prolonged lack of eye contact, its brief, unedited message, which smirks, which slaps.
So whenever people used to say, oh, what does your husband do? I was like, oh, he's a poet. And they would say, oh, does he write you love poetry? And I would always say, no, he writes about race riots and minstrelsy. Like, read a poem. So one of them was a journal called Ecotone, which I really love. It's like kind of one of the bring. Betrayal. How wrong I was about what makes family. One spring we flew south. Below us, Middle Earth iced pale as sheet cake. A tasteless shrinking patchwork of red barns and gray silos, squared by fallow fields, to a bone-dry atoll on the equator. Nothing grew. Septuagenarian lobstermen harvested the coral. We lay on sand so sharp and white it scarified our backside. No trees, no birds, only wind, starfish, and coconut water. We'd never planned to call an alpine village home. We returned, smarting sunburns, squirreling away vitamin D. In fall, yard signs popped out.
You know, I can't hear you.
No F-35 jet, reduced admission, Black Lives Matter, and we believe science. We mistook courtesies for conversation, interrogation for intimacy, hand grenades for handshakes. If a white woman could be Captain America, I thought I'd be more than her black son. Your poems written during the pandemic. September dahlias, after Breonna Taylor. On my daily dog walks, I always pause at the rain garden and the grassy verge where someone has staked a jungle of rainbow dahlias. When I lean in to inhale their unscented green, fretful petals tickle my eyebrows. At the farmer's market, I sometimes splurge for a single solid garnet stalk or a delectable two-tone with peaches and cream. How dear would be a dozen, and robin egg blue, the color of the trademark box my fiance placed on my dessert plate after dinner at Lee Smith's, a restaurant in NYC's Theater District, sadly shuttered by the owner's early onset dementia, now kept ghostly company because Broadway's also gone dark. or the monochromatic backdrop Amy Sherrill paints for her cover shot. Framed by turquoise and shrouded in aquamarine glamour, she poses how I stand in solo photos. I never know what to do with my hands. The head of a dahlia can stretch a foot in diameter, like sunflower giants, unbelievably aloft. In the hush of night, I palm a pair of knitting scissors, shear off their heads for her bouquet, and calligraphy her name in sidewalk chalk. I'll do one more first book since it gets lonely. One of the things that we did as a family when the boys were young, with two boys, was we always watched movie night. And Ahmad is very fond of old movies, and somehow he's edited out a lot of things that happen in these old movies that we'll be watching. Like I remember we were watching Grief, and they were like, "What is the thing that was so old that it didn't work?" I was like, "No, we're not going to have that conversation." So this one is kind of about that. Seeking must love sidewalk Charlie. After Mary Poppins, 1964. 2/3 in, there's a minstrel show. Unexpected, and yet it's impossible to resist step in time. Fetch an umbrella and cakewalk London's Aries, throwing children from their bed for a midnight carnival. Awake every hour on the other. I consider other mothers. Hire a night nurse, they advise. A spoonful of sugar will help you forget how she squeezed between the bodies of men, her darlings left tucked tamale tight, fingernails clawing at slivers of air. How fanciful to imagine her skirts swelling in a warm wind over your border.
So Sheree mentioned that as two boys, and so this book came out in 2020, and yeah, I was writing about depression, and then like when reviews came out, you know, like people started to say, "Oh, like this book is about motherhood." Don't forget your lunch. My dear son, it won't matter how friendly you are, or how honest, or which Ivy League school you've attended. It won't matter whether you hold the door, shop with your hands out of your pockets, or say thank you after giving the cashier most of your money, or saying to the local barista or waiter, "Fine, how are you?" It won't matter if your lawn is cut, or the hedges, or whether the paint along the garage door begins to weather, whether your car is dented or carries a few seasons of wax, whether you signal or roll through a four-way intersection, whether you roll down all the windows or spread your fingers against the steering wheel or against the dash, the way you might trace your palm for yet another Thanksgiving construction paper turkey. There are children and there are no children. I think I failed to teach you how to protect your heart. Every decade now, I grow more quiet, like the sound is holding inside itself and cutting dark shapes into corners of my throat. Sound being thumbed down to fit into some undersized box. And I feel angry. And maybe it's the money or how I dress never seemed to matter. The first time a police officer put a gun to my head, the night was as still and musty and oily as your body is now. I lost count, but who counts? Curves and hoods and concrete and sky. You know, your mother collected all your baby teeth in a tea tin from England. Some nights I'm sweating and the stars start rattling in my hand. So this one is connected to the aftermath of the 92 riots. I mean, I know it was an uprising in my heart, like in that moment, I was like, what's going on there? What's going on there? The authority. Call it what it was, a Watts, or the bright salvo against Reginald Denny's face. How triumphantly bloody now I remember it. The red truck, the driver's side door, aimless as a slick toupee, or the flap of one skull. Or how Holmes, Playboy, after he dropped him, seemed to high step, seemed to glad hand the air. We were talking about West Baltimore after dinner, about the boy who, at the behest of his mother for breaking some windshield, turned himself in. My son, our son, because we have gone hoarse for years trying to get him to listen, thanks. Here's a story about obedience and redemption. And given the divine narcissism of childhood, where the juice-stained protagonist often emerges from an orchard only to confess, or the soldier returning, whose wounds vanish after his feet are washed with palm oil, or sweet, sweet Isaac, the bound body, and Abraham's stayed hand. Who wouldn't believe that God rewards? So then, I grew up in Compton, born and raised in Compton, down the road, and gangsters predate gangster rap, as it turns out, right? So I was thinking about like, what if really like kind of badass dudes listen to smoke. The most dangerous men in my neighborhood only listen to love songs. To reach those notes, a musicologist told me a man essentially cuts his own throat. Some nights, even now, I'll hear a falsetto and think I should run.
Poem began as a guzzle, ends a scorpion. After Eduardo Corral was a beautiful line. In certain countries, you must check your slipper each morning for scorpions. There, tucked in the round corner of a three-legged backjaw, was a scorpion. I wanted avidity in the hot, dry hotel where the wind blew in, night-brooding scorpion, where you made me the promise to call you by your given name and not by who your family asked for when you phoned. Decades later, I still think they have the wrong number. A promise is easy to keep for a scorpion, by which I mean to a scorpion, a vendetta is a reason for getting up in the morning and ensconcing their exoskeleton in your enemy's left espadrille. I will never forget to check their shoes for scorpion, like the one tattooed on the rise of my right hip. Or is it a constellation of moles matching the meteoric spray on your back that I inspect with my tongue, seeking irregularities, the oblong, the one that has changed positions with its brothers? You chose to lay down with a scorpion, but remember that I was the one who said it first. You were named for a jazz prophet, and I for what is dear and sweet, what girls are made of. Both of us conceived in the disco aftermath of assassinations. In certain countries, children know you must turn your boots out upside down because scorpions gather before dawn.
I had a last one. So then, so the word shireen in Arabic or Urdu version in sleep, like a confection. I'm also like into the sleep person, with nature, so the title of this poem should. We finished the bread. We'll end the meal with a taste of pomegranate. I'll twist the moon from its vine and measure its weight against a pomegranate. After sampling the smoke in your skin, my lips were cured. Smiling, I go through the air, my throat red balloon into the size of a pomegranate. When the house is empty, I stand at the window. Our cat yelps like a dog at the door, and silence reeks of rotting pomegranate. Last night was as dark as dry blood. When you carried our son, you dreamed of an orchard where skulls were as small as pomegranates. I keep company with shadows. We sit in the living room. I offer wine and cheese and apologize for the absence of pomegranate. Late, when my mother was gone, I counted the passing cars from the front porch, taillights like seeds spit from a pomegranate. A modern romance. You undress, but never say a word. I touch your ribcage, take my thumbs, and split you like a pomegranate.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, one more time. Okay. The next couple we're gonna hear from are Laureate and William Martina. Ready? That's you two.
You know, you just shut up, right?
Well, I'm gonna do that while you're reading.
Oh, no, no,
Right.
oh, me? Hi, everyone. Happy National Couples Day. If it's not, it should be now. Wow, are the lights like bright in your eyes? Did you sense that? Okay, I always talk about what I'm going through. So shy still. We've been thinking, okay, so let's get this straight. Should I go first? Yeah. Yeah. So we've been married 17 years. This Saturday will be our 17th anniversary. We're gonna clap because it's amazing we stay together. I just want to say that I did something I think pretty amazing. I wrote 50 love sonnets for him. Yeah, and whoever publishes this is gonna be really lucky because they rock. So I wanted to surprise him and say happy anniversary. And I'm gonna read the first one. No, I know, I'm keeping it. No treacherous mudslide, fall of the homeland's muck, slick grease of the land's afterbirth and rotted toil. No slick back cut cowlick, no modern cliff comb over can equal the thick, flat horse brush of your double. Windswept strands of nauseating, the expected way tossed predictability. How could your hair relax into a wave you expect? How could you possibly mimic something imagined everywhere when you come from scalps slick driven, raw and equated to brown corn soaked in sugar cane liquid? That earthfall bids good night to all that is logical and right. That sea stack formed by erosion that collapses into sleep each night with the thought of making islands. As tough as mesa, dark as a crow's road, you taught me your straight-faced, leather bag, hair only up there. Right?
And the thing is, just so you know, when it's published Monday, it's basically like an Yvonne Bolen against love poetry kind of thing, like basically the whole thing mocks him. Because, yeah, because that's how we fell in love, like I just had to, I should tell him about how, no, not tonight. Okay. So- William? Yes.
I wanted to start with something very simple and straight, inspired by my godmother, who just recently passed away in El Salvador. I used to call her Yesarita, even though she's my godmother, and she just always just told me for doing that. Las tías. They get together in the evenings for coffee and pan dulce. When the weather is cool and the white handkerchief out for a sniff is a sign of colonial elegance. They talk in the tone of hamacas in the hospice, medieval cathedral in the form of a son who can no longer reinvent the sign of the cross. Eyeglasses rim for the metal frame of their lives in a small town. Belt with a metal buckle to mark the equator line around the barrel of a gun. They come with flapping arms around children saying, vengan, siéntense, vengan a comer. Class of pigeons are their lonely apprentices, demanding a court case for the death of their children. Where are they going in their proper settings? Lament happens so gradually. No one ever notices the dust settling on the lemon trees. One's home nap of pears and baby's hair. Las tías in their lavender and moth scent, in the blue flame of their stove, who boiled their water in oils, who bore a plane every night and never make it back.
Um. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So. At same thing as Shreen, I have not read in person since the pandemic, like it was 2019, yeah, I haven't read in person. Hey! And I do the art too. And so the pandemic was something else. The good news is that it made me write even more than I did before. I don't believe in writer's block. And I think that I think people should just challenge themselves to be even more creative. I just kind of don't know what I'm gonna say. I just kind of say what I'm doing. But anyway, the good news is that I decided to just challenge myself. So I kept writing and writing and writing, despite all the sorrow and all the obstacles that we went through. And I won the Pablo Neruda Prize for Poetry. And I want to share that because, you live on this earth and then you leave. And, why be shy? Why not share? So my mom passed away at the beginning of the pandemic, March 15th. And a year before her, my dad passed away. And then a year after my mom, my third girl, his dad passed away. So we lost 3 grandparents in 2 years. And so I turned what I could into some form of art. So this is called Ode to Their Leaving. As if the sky which darkened on that monumental day, the day Lebanon would be left behind for you both, The day all relations, kin, unshaven onlookers gritted their teeth with a kielbasa. Village women began the ritual of tears, handkerchiefs tied to the trees, the sheep slaughtered to the last. As if the flight above the Atlantic and all the cirrus clouds bowing to the course, the passport the husband opens and closes over and over again, knowing he may lose them all to another set of civil unrest, another war calculated like the backgammon board, too large and burdensome to bring along. As if the teeth of the East Coast hold the stifle air of the small apartments, the lies that led to the losing of jobs that they said would replenish the spent money. As if all of this was not enough of a cauldron, a wingless griffin. The husband dies first, a year later the wife dies, and these two called father, mother, in one's eeriest and quietest sleep, not birth-like or dream-like, but the time of post-midnight hallucinatory lullabies and comfort. Why do you not say, say it, say, daughter. Daughter, holding genetics of immigrant food stain, holding the small histories of their breakfast flattery. And so what did you know of them tomorrow? Father scanned the news of the world, knew the guilt of countries and mustached biographies, while he never spoke of his illness. The spine fractured, the valves roadblocked, the vocal cords bombed. If anger was his food, then food was his poison. The bites didn't matter. The morsels mother fed him off, even the smallest of them. And mother, did you tell him what was coming, or did you decide to follow him? Is it a daughter's greatest sin to ask? But look how quiet I am. I watch the world cry itself to sleep. I pinch the spices into the bowl, as you did today, you and me, as you did on the unbelievable food.
So, before the pandemic, around 2016, I taught in the Westlake district, mostly unaccompanied minors. And so much of my time teaching them, was spent in dealing with their mental health and their, social issue, stories of poverty, gang violence, lack of education, opportunity, economic opportunities. So this poem rises out of that experience. Central American boys. The product they pack. Chronic culprit in love with bullets, plucked like stars. They glance at each other, crossing the street. The way they know their fathers will never come back. Profanity, yes. Illiterate, ill-nourished, most of them, most definitely. In addition, the brilliant genesis of Odysseus. They small ghosts, like pale plates of water abandoned under the brush. It might as well be a jar of snares. Mosquitoes, damn mosquitoes to get rid of, draining the blood for eggs. They, the memory of a stowaway, hitting the ground again and again.
So people think I like to overdo it, but I don't. So this will be my last poem. I mean, you know, part of it's genetic, but basically it makes it all up. So I also miss my first book, and it's my only book, and that's because no one is, I mean, it's okay to say this, right? And no one's smart enough to publish my second book. Thank you. We're related, right? So this is from my first book. And it's based on an aunt that I met who was really not afraid of anything. She was amazing. What floods the hour? This evening, the light does not fail, neither do the stars, my voice bright colors of old jazz albums. Perhaps my mind fails. This basin of nerves nebula does not utter the right words. It looks at the damp bush against the window, remembers le, si, on the sheet. The melody stuck between a star and moon. Who will sing this to me? All around me stillness, but my mind reaches to a moment in Armenia when Anush told me her husband used to beat her. And so the day he came home with the breath of a dragon, she pushed him into the ditch, dug for grapevine, threw in his bottles of bourbon. Is the right thing on the I keep an inventory of the evening, books and plays, dates lost out of order. Something in the memory hears my grandmother's teeth clicking and murmurs, forming the book of Luke or John, singing hymns about God while her bed filled itself with nightmares of ash. Her long gray hair becomes a room. My mind rattles like a toy box falling. Everything is a cliche. Even the new bud illuminating the glass has been done before. The petals break down, the sob bursting like a ball. What doesn't seem so familiar is this. My mind conjures up my children who wait in the skies. I remember walking along the Charles River, picking ways to save myself from the grips of a wedding ring. Even grandmother dropped a pail of water and ran far into the field when the arranged suitor came to the door. I counted beer bottles as if they were seeds. Did Anush know that I too drank the stars? This evening, no, the light does not fail, nor does my mind, because there is no darkness in the mind. Here, lullabies are golden. There's always a voice singing to me, keeping the words bottled in light.
So I'm not reading from my books because I'm tired of books. I'm really sick of it. So. So this is a poem in conversation with Philip Larkin. The Philip Larkin poem, Sad Steps, which is an allusion to another English poem by Sir Philip Sidney. I think it's a sonnet sequence called Astrophil and Stella, in the sonnet 31. And the poem begins with a line, with how south steps, O moon, thou climb the sky. And my title is an autumn allusion to Miles Davis' album, 7 Steps to Heaven. 3 sad steps to heaven. After Philip Larkin. After installing the shelves in the pantry, mid-December, descending for a smoke, I go out for a steaming shower of fresh air in the patch of dead grass. Which is to say, something must be done about the loneliness it takes to imagine the dead, which is a word with a lot of dead weight of a pallbearer, with dust light coming on like a tint of blue nickel, with no attention to Mack trucks cussing like the B-side of a 45. Something tells me to climb the plastic treehouse. Something tells me I am so near, so far. Don't confuse your pause and con. Here, a plane. Here, a crow locked on a telephone wire. 7-Eleven corner with more scrapyard cars spatting than the long crawl of anger I see from my 3 sad steps over the ice. I too shiver, knowing it's in the shaky rooftops of the Christmas trees, out of the dark mountain throats where the sky fades like a staircase. But I am no wolf howling at the moon tower. Inside me is a casket where I prefer the dead to this cold, muted moon. This fleck of foam puffing itself wide like a stare. There's much darkness around the O's of the moon as there is much dirt in the grave. I love to hear you tell me what it's like to see me pop, what it's like to see me drift in and out of cloud. Tell me, at least, how my absence grounds you with the pin of a needle. No one walking the streets is here to see you. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our last poetry couple. We're going to read Yvonne M. Estrada and Terry Woolhitton.
Thank you for inviting us. Okay. I met Terry. Oh, I don't know, 26 years ago. And I don't know, in 2016 we got married. Because we could, and we did. And so I had known her for a long time, and one day she said, "No one ever tells me jokes. I was born into the house of clowns, and my family, that's it." That's just how it is. So I started sending her jokes every single day. Every single day I was in her bed. And so it was the best friendship. And so we had one of the jokes was a string walks into a bar. So this is string theory, no joke. A string walks into a bar. A huge crowd has gathered. Before him, the bartender places a plastic red basket of hot wings and cheese toast. The string breathes in, then sighs, blesses the food. Cocktail waitresses pass it out. Even the hecklers eat. They taunt the string. They sneer. If you come from the cosmic net, then weave us a miracle, a blanket that brings back the dead, or fly a kite into the parallel universe. Here, take these soup cans, stretch yourself between them. Take one to heaven, set the other one on the bar, so we can listen to the voice of God.
So early on in our relationship, we would give each other poetry challenges. And we used that joke, a string walks into a bar, as one of our poetry challenges. So that was her poem. This is mine. It's called Theory of Everything. And it's based on something called M theory, which is related to string theory. And it posits that there are 11 different dimensions that are all happening simultaneously. So this poem has 11 stanzas. A string walks into a bar. Cool light sidles for sheer length. The jukebox plays Flying to the Moon. A string walks into a bar. The jukebox plays Come Fly With Me. In the corner booth, a rusty knife. A string walks into a bar. In the corner booth, a blunt knife nurses a Pabst Blue Ribbon. A string walks into a bar, orders a Pabst Blue Ribbon, swivels onto a tall stool. A string walks into a bar, slides onto a vacant stool, awaits the bartender's benediction. A string walks into a bar, receives a tall, cool benediction. She looks around for a light. A string walks into a bar, scrounges her purse for a light. The bowl of bar nuts is down to a snowdrift of salt. A string walks into a bar, salt from the bar nuts sucks moisture from her tongue. She traces initials carved into the wooden edge. A string walks into a bar. She traces initials that might once have been hers. Her eyes fill at the memory. A string walks into a bar. Memory spontaneously combusts. Ice dies in the bottom of a glass. A string walks into a bar. Ice cracks open as it melts. Blue neon shadows her sheer length.
So, for 24 years, I have been an EMT, drive an ambulance, a first responder, all that. I work for the county of Los Angeles, actually for the county, not quite ambulance and that stuff. County of Los Angeles is a never-ending line of patients. And some of those patients are not just medically, having medical problems, they're also psychological. Many of them are minors. This is a poem about me. So this poem is, you can't Google this crap. Is it truly fair to blame and smack the older sisters if a toddler brother says the F word to their mother? When should a child risk a backhanded slap to the chops for talking back? How long should a sixth grader endure the frostbite of a mother's silent treatment? Does a mother have the right to complain that her grown children don't call her enough? What is the appropriate age for a child to have a cell phone? If a young adult daughter smashes the screen of her phone and cuts her wrists with a glass, who will call 911?
Blown open. I can recognize anarchy when I see it. You planting small, warm buttons in the violet earth. I wanted your fingers to unlatch my spine, everything detonating in my weary brain. Landmines going off in the blood garden. Wherever I thought I was, revealed to be another world. If that seems terrible, it was, but I was no victim. I was a buried planet exposed to pearl light. I was a river of fire, a star dismantled in a recent galaxy, photo of an aching sky. Before this, my face held tight to its metal casing, jaws packed with wars of remembering, fiery cities of nothing known or chosen. Before this, I fished seeds from a blackened shore. Now my hand curls around this velvet fog. You laugh, embrace the innocence you've sown.
You like William, I can bring So also, I'm gonna stick with these poems, about, what goes on around the hospital is a lot of ruthless people. This is for those that dwell in the third space. In their sleeping bags atop steaming sidewalk braids, giant wet larvae. Ruthless man sits, sings, it makes me want to holla, nest of plastic bags. Summer fries, white skies, men lie in young trees, sparse of shade. One has overdosed. 7-Eleven, we begrudge filthy woman who wins $50. Baseball cap and bra, red and purple spectacle, stare or look away. 3-inch fingernails, he sells the clothes we give him, no one fucks with him. Feet wrapped in torn gauze, too big Nikes, no laces, jaywalks between cars. Man in wheelchair stands when children pass, his pants fall, tells cops he can't walk. Needs his diaper changed, pulls the elevator alarm, he knows we must come. Vodka and gangrene, stench clears the hallway, masks don't work, she wails, they raped me. Man appears pregnant, I haven't drank in a year, doctor rolls his eyes. LA warmth calls them, they become invisible, they say it's better.
What have you left in your bed? A tangle of hair come loose from your head and ensnared by the pillow. Skin cells embedded in sheets. A dot of blood from scratching flea bites in your sleep. Elixir of sweat soaked into mattress. Longing for your spouse who's turned from your flesh in search of coolness. A scattering of dreams shook loose during the sleep cycle, like marbles spilled from a jar. They rolled everywhere, beyond your sight, can't be recaptured or contained. When you try to turn your ear toward their music, they've disappeared. You hear no sound, not even an echo. Unmake and remake the bed, search bedclothes, run fingers over the pillowcases, try to read their braille, but they've departed to wherever dreams go when they're forgotten, unclaimed. At night, when you turn out the lamp, pull back the comforter, you're shocked to find the sheets still occupied. Pillow slip, creased by your face, spouse nuzzling into your neck, no longer fitful, sweaty. Your feet tangled against footboard, scrabbling like dogs breathing.
Okay, so this is called In the Darkness. I tell you my dreams before they vanish, like how the junkies threw my bike at me. We were in France and I could speak Spanish. But hold on. I tell you my dreams before they vanish, like how the junkies threw my bike at me. We were in France and I could speak Spanish. The thrown and locked out of a cake bakery dream. We examine each one like code breakers. The Sasquatch hairy body razor dream. How I couldn't revive my coworker. His eyes so dead. The guilt in my bloodstream, such a shock. I almost didn't tell you, my CPR failed. I needed witness. Your groggy ears listened and helped review this otherworldly, subconscious message. One more round of slumber before daybreak. Nightmares slither away to their own place.
wherever you are. Sometimes I feel I am performing for your eyes as I move about the city, walking on a train, crossing the alley, surrounded by conversations of others, but wrapped in your song. I carry a blue scrap of night in my mouth, like a hard seed about to blossom in its morning bed. Its scent floating on my skin. I watch for your face in the window, look for that light beaming at me in the language of a lost world. You're not there, but I imagine you on the corner when I turn, clothed in the skirt of sun you gave me, sky singing too, soaking me in great hearted laughter.
That was wonderful. Oh, we have questions. And I'm sure some of you have questions as well. I'm gonna ask a couple questions. Peter and I are gonna ask, and then we'll see what else anyone might want to ask them about being poetry specialists. So one question I had was either what was your first date? Or what was your most notable literary experience together? Whichever is more interesting.
Oh. I'll go first. William and I met at UCLA in a class called The Poet as Activist and Healer with Michael Thatcher. And that's where it all began. We did not go on a date for a while because I flew to Sacramento. It was a lot. Okay, let's cut it short. That's it. So that's what you know, you want to hear more? Find me a publisher and then I'll do the big read. I can talk for hours.
So we met together 27 years. And we met in grad school, orientation, years ago. And we ended up taking a class together, a Caribbean literature class. And Shreen's girlfriend Jennifer, we were walking back from the class. And Shreen's friend Jennifer decided that she would go home. And then like Shereen and I like said, oh, we're hungry, maybe we should go get lunch. And I think from that lunch, that was just good. I don't know if we really like that, but we just seemed
Yeah, it's funny that, so the part that he left out of it was that it's orientation. When we met, he asked me, I was part of this writing group, it's called Colored Women, Colored World. And he was like, oh, I write poetry, can I come to your group? And I was like, it's called Colored Women, Colored World. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just take it back. That was kind of like, but that was the first time, and then we had, and then after the lunch, the part, because you asked about the literary part, we went to, there was this used bookstore, and we went to this used bookstore, and there was like Gwendolyn Brooks collection, and Let Me Read this poem I really love, it's called Love Your Love, and I listened to him reading through this poem, and that was like when I knew we would meet again. I did. I just could hear because I was thinking that I was like, I know that we are.
Oh, wow.
Jennifer does say we owe.
No, yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
we're going home.
he
like
paid her. Okay, your turn.
So, our first date was to, a performance at Grand Performances by Anna Scott that was about string theory. I was gonna take my class, my Thursday night class. And, and because we had been doing this, because she had been sending me these jokes and had sent me the string theory joke, this is before the poem. I said, do you want to go? And she was like, yeah. So this was an event in June. Grand Performance is an outdoor venue. June can go either way. It was kind of cold. And as we're sitting there watching the performance, she says, are you going to share your body heat? So that was interesting.
I am curious about how you do your practices. I mean, do you, you know, as you're writing, you share with each other. What is the, you know, what's the sort of rules of the game in terms of creating your own work? So that it, you know, reflects what you really are about, or you know, whether there is a couple overlap in terms of the creative process.
You take that question.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so one of the great advantages about being poets, the fact that we can always share each other's work, right? So, we have done that for a long time where, you know, we're excited, we write something down, want to share with each other, and we kind of workshop each other and bounce ideas off each other. And that's always exciting. And then when the kids came, it got kind of difficult to do that. Because there was less time and, you know, we were more tired and less patient. God, this poem is 2 pages long. You know, you know, don't read me that sequence by now. It's 10 o'clock. I get up to go to work tomorrow. But it's been something where we have developed this understanding of sharing each other's work and helping each other, and trying to figure out time for each other. For example, when I was commuting to work, I used to write while I was driving. So I would use my voice activation with my phone, and I would write one line at a time. And the next day, I would listen to that line, and I would edit it or erase it, start over again, or add a second line. And then just add to the poem like that, one by one, until I have something and I can share with her. And she's pretty much, I mean, you know, my editor who says like, no, trash it, you know, go on, you know. So you know, sometimes I think she said her name should go in my book. So, but anyway, go ahead. That's your thing.
To answer that question, I would say that they, on a spectrum, it's 2 different ends of the spectrum. I keep my work very private, close to inside my head, or you know, close to myself. And it doesn't come out until your class, workshop, or a submission of some sort, whether it's a prompt or a theme. And it's just very different than Terry writes a lot. His writing days is social.
And yet, ironically, Yvonne is in my poetry class. And so she's bringing in work fairly regularly, not just for my feedback, but for the group's feedback. And I rarely do. So.
I think similarly, like is, we have 2 children as well, and before the children, I felt like we used to exchange a lot, and it was that time, it's like, oh, if you have this time, I want you to use it to write, right, as opposed to read. I work so overtime, we haven't done less of that.
Yeah.
Or now it's more like really specific, like there was a poem, actually one of the ones that I read, where there was something wrong. Like one line, like a line was wrong, and it made me help, and then we had a whole conversation around that, and that was fun, right, like that one particular thing. But usually, if someone gets writing done, we mostly just like, good for you, you know? It's like, home, you know, shutting it down.
Yeah, we don't like in that stuff, like, we don't need to like have the palms to hold us together, like the bills and like trying to keep the house. So all of the acrobatics of just like kind of being married, so like the poems you feel sometimes like escape, they're just conversations with those like imaginary people, but also like live in the house with me. Like, so that I think that part of it is nice. And then those moments when we can say, oh, well, what do you think of this or this? I don't know if I do that as much, because it's like I just write something, put it in a box or just stow it away. And then it's like, oh yeah, when I'm feeling really bad about myself, it's like, oh, like I wrote a poem 6 months ago. Like maybe that's not as bad as like, I think. And it's like, okay.
Right.
So it's a, I don't
I'm
know.
more like that. I'm more like that. Like I'll write and I won't tell William. And he'll like go, can I read you a sonnet while we eat? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. He reads it to me. Like, yeah, well, the first part sucks. Like the first 6 I just take him out. He's like, you really think? I'm like, yeah, because I believe in you. You can write something better than that. And then he will. He's like, he's a genius. I mean, he's a great poet. That's how we fell in love. And I'm crazy. Like I'll go, yeah, I sent this poetic sequence out, and I'll go, what poetic sequence? I'm like, well, it's about 14 pages long. And if the New York Times says, oh, I scroll, I'm just like, I'm very, I'm overly confident. It's not good for me, I've heard. But, yeah, no, I congratulate William because he's put up with me for a long time. I mean, we've been married 17 years, but we've known each other for like what, 50? Like he wouldn't marry me because I think he was scared of me, but I wouldn't be scared of me. Oh, this was about poetry.
What's so I was first wondering about the poets of children, like
Oh, God.
if 2 poets have a child, do they grow up and make a poem? Like, what's the interaction like between craft and anything you can say on that? And your children feel about poetry. What they're having to do with the craft, they ask the kids.
I'll just say something ridiculous and then you're so just say that. I'll just say something. Okay. So being a mom is really tough. Period. And then being a mom and wanting to still be a poet is even tougher. And then growing up in a very patriarchal household. My father was Middle Eastern and my mom was Middle Eastern. We're of Armenian descent, but my father was from Lebanon, my mother was from Syria. So I'm constantly battling against these ideas, and I write about them a lot in my newer work, where I'm like, oh, I have to do the dishes, I have to cook, I have to do all these, fulfill all these roles, but the poet is always there. So lately I've been writing a lot about, the women. I had 2 uncles who were poets, and I'm like, God, no one ever asked me of my aunts, did you ever want to be a poet? Did you ever, so there's all these voices that you realize there's so, right, you're nodding your head. Oh my God, I'm gonna speak Armenian to her. Yeah, right. So there's so many voices that are probably missing. But in terms of motherhood, it's so hard because like your poems are like your children. Like you just like you write them and then you gotta let it go. You gotta like put it out there. And like someone might say something bad about one of your poems or one of your books and whatever, but it's a struggle. But the one nice thing is in terms of being a mother is one of my kids when they were a toddler in kindergarten, She wrote, my mom is a poet. She loves music. She makes, you know, she loves music. Like, I'm like, because they said, what are the most important things about your mom? So I love that he wrote, oh, she wrote, I was a poet. That's so cool. Like he remembered that, like it stayed with her. And I'm like, cool. Yes, yeah. And I bought them truthfully say I am a feminist. So, I mean, like, I feel glad that we're raising kids that have a poet mom and a poet dad. And I think that's good because it also teaches them voice yourself. But we also have to teach them respect yourself, just like we're going to respect men, other women. Remember, respect your kind.
Pretty, it's a beautiful experience to have kids. But it's pretty exhausting as well.
Yeah, I'm totally.
I'm constantly tired. But they amaze me. I had planned to read this to you guys. Because it's a collection of things that they have said to me since they were 5. And basically I just collected them and put them together. Dear Art Deco Daddy. Dear Darkness Daddy. Again, you wear the shirt with holes. Your back is the midnight zone. You must read Cat in the Hat with the full stomach. It's not fear the reaper, it's don't feel the ripple. Marvin is a good name for space panda. Cloud, cloud, I am without doubt a fly in the cloud. Always poetry, too much poetry. Whenever you tell me a lot of stuff, my eyes get blurry. I want you to know this day is known only to pirates. They are all educational. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I want to be a wink so I can drink pink ink. You can put that in a poem. You can call it wow. So with the amazing stuff they share with me.
For our younger son, you asked about, so we have 2 boys, right? But our younger one, when he was in 2nd grade, entered this poetry contest that I think we were in class. It was called the Best Poetry Contest, and if you won, an artist would illustrate your poem and it would go on the bucket. And he won. And I remember it was August, and then we drove all over the state. We were always trying to catch the bus. We were like, where's the bus? And we were like, we saw the bus. Oh, we were always wanting to catch it. And finally, just sort of when we weren't planning on it, one day we were just in the car and we looked up and we saw that and we said, wow, even young before either younger, so it was really that it was really special because we brought them up, with language, right? And it was just to see, and take that into then, and be able to confidently put that up.
The bar is like so high. If your first publication, like in the 2nd grade, is on a bus. What are you doing in 8th grade? He doesn't have an ego, like it didn't like kind of morph him into like a monster or anything like that, but it was such a beautiful thing just because it felt, and I think it always seemed like organic, it's just like, my parents, like, they stand up and then they would be home. That's like a thing that people do, so I think one of the real blessings, whatever our professions are, right, like it's just, it becomes kind of like a family business, like we always talk about that. It's like, it's just what we do. We're books around you, we think about words and like, we're dreaming and the pros and cons of that, like, thank God, like our oldest son, like had like the math part of the thing that we didn't get, so it's like, but it's just it's a trade-off. It's like metaphor versus variables, right?
I used to drag my son with me to poetry readings when he was younger, until he was about 13 and he was like hiding when it was time. But one day, I went in his room for something, put clothes in there or something. And he had taken one of my poems that was about back in the day sneaking out the window to go smoking at a party. And he had taken this poem and cut it out like exactly along the lines of the poem and taped it over his light switch. So I never saw it because I was always looking in the door this way, but I went in his room and came out. I was like,
Oh.
good taste, right? And now he has just graduated from high school last year, or from college last year in music theory. He's a teacher
Wow.
and with high honors. And we I did stuff. And he got stuff. And so, yay.
Yes. Are there any other questions? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's really not a question, comment. First of all, I think we owe a lot on our computer. There's been some fabulous poet laureates we've ever had in the library in terms of inviting other poets and showing us what poetry can be. Thank you, though. Secondly, I just want to thank you all, because as I said tonight, I actually am not, never thought of myself, not a poet. However, you have inspired me as I sit here in the seat, actually compose the first lines of my first poem.
I actually have a question for.
Oh my God. Wait, hold on. I'm like, I'm never nervous when someone asks me a question, but it's obvious.
Well, when you said about, like, existing, or writer's block being on listening.
Yeah.
Then like, can you kind of speak about that, like how, sometimes how you maintain, like, your own, kind of like the way, and those times, like, you kind of see that as like, kind of like, in those times, it's not why the best, you're not find your best work, just like side, kind of like comes out, and, you know, most like powerful way in those times, but I just someone who's kind of like elaborate.
August, I just want to say that, like, I'm really real, so I don't hide behind like masks, like I think a lot of people do that, I know, but I'm so honored by your question, and like, I feel super lucky that you asked me, and I'm so excited that you threw that question. Thank you. I don't believe in writers. There's so much I could say, but I'm just gonna say things that don't match, and I trust your intelligence level that you can put it together. The reason I don't believe in writer's block is because when I first went to Ellis Island, I saw that people scribbled on it. And there was nothing else to do, and they wrote, things, and they wrote messages. When they were kind of like, quote unquote, in prison there. When people go to prison, what do? They write. When people said during the pandemic that they couldn't write, or they had writer's block, or they couldn't do that, I said, that's, baloney, BS. No, that means that you have been so privileged, and you have been so lucky that your favorite little cafe and your sweet little pen and you have your chandelier on the right way. No, like that means that you've had it so easy, that suddenly when you can't go out and about and spend your money and do your thing and sit down at, with your favorite notebook and write, that means you've had it too easy. I don't believe in writing block because it's the one thing that someone can't take away from. They cannot take away my books. I could care less. I don't know. You cannot take away my freedom to express myself. You can't take my voice away. When I was a young girl, I was told to shut up. I was always told, girls don't talk, girls don't raise their voice, girls do not talk when the men in the family are having a discussion. I set my mind to it that I would not be quiet. My whole life, and I would write, I would talk. That guy was the only guy, William Marshall, my husband, he was the only guy that was not afraid of me. Because there's so many men, like, you know, when I would try to go to dinner with them, I noticed they snuck under the table and they had crawled out of the restaurant. I'm talking to all the stronger people in the restaurant around them blast. And so basically, there's no such thing as writer's block as long as you believe that you can work. There's no way, there's nothing. Writer's block doesn't even make sense. I mean, if you can say it's a good day outside, write it down. It's a good day. Why? It's a good day outside because I remember when my grandfather taught me how to paint a fence. And what do fences remind me of? Borders. But I remember when my friend so-and-so told me about how his grandma had to come across the border between Mexico and like you just associative thinking. There's no such thing as writing. I don't care if you're 5, I don't care if you're 50, 500, I don't care who you are, what your state is, there is no such thing, you know? I mean, I don't even know if I'm answering your question. Yeah, but you can't, don't believe what people tell you. That's number one. Don't believe what people tell you. If you have to go, what did he say? It doesn't really matter. I mean, no, because I love him and I know I trust whatever he's mumbling. Did you want to say something else? Are you sure? If you want to talk more about the weekend, it's mom. Any other questions?
Wanted to circle back to the financial and parenting question. I grew up Mexican in a traditional Catholic household, and having godparents is like a major thing. Although in my family, it wasn't so much based on religion, it was just like a major thing to have a godparent. And I love my godparents. Like not everybody that would baptize me, and but I never felt that connection with them. You know, they didn't really show up the way I thought the godparents show up. Well, Terry Wolverton is my writing teacher, and maybe like, I don't know, 13 years ago, in Spanish, we refer to a godmother as Nina and a godfather as Nino. And about like 13 years ago, it just came out of me, right? I was sitting with Terry and I was like, Nina. And I was like, hey, is it okay? Like, if I call you Nina? And, you know, she said yes. And I talked to her about this whole godparenting thing in the family. But then, you know, I also met Iman. And I was like, oh shoot. Can I call you Nina? And so Nina Y, Nina T. And I would say like having Ninas that are writers.
Is that really?
Holy cow. Yeah, I can look up to them and want to be like great writers the way they are.
And you are.
and then just to be able to like, you know, call them my name. So I thought to circle back and acknowledge.
Oh, I guess I was just gonna ask. Are there any challenges in parents to be in charge of
There's tons of obstacles. Tons of obstacles. Like I want to succeed, but I want him to succeed too. But like I don't want him to succeed before I do. And I get jealous, and then it's like I love him, but like I hate it when he you know, he does stuff, and then we're parents, so it's hard. I mean, I'm being honest. It sucks sometimes, but then I'm really proud of him, and I love him so much.
Yeah, sometimes I think for the kids team, the relationship that we have with each other with
our work, publishing our work, or successes, what have you. It was very helpful. Very helpful. The moment they came in, some exciting people were like,
It's me.
I'm running out, we gotta get things out, who's gonna get the award, who's gonna publish first,
It's my,
who's gonna go here, and, yeah, I don't know what that's about. I
it's
was
me.
talking to a lot about that earlier, but all of a sudden, like, there was this sense like, you gotta get things, on the paper, you gotta get them out now, but, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think basically, I think, it's the relationship that we have with, our work is, still, I think you can still be called and tell you.
I'll say this, every poetry couple is different. And I think they're beyond amazing and healthy, and they're beyond amazing and healthy, and I'm manic. So William's pretty amazing for sticking with me, but I'll say this. I'm gonna kick ass, and so is William, and so are they, and that's all I know. I know for a fact that we are all going to persevere and flourish, because I decided. Like, that's the way I am. Like, I just decided in my head, I love all these people, and I love everyone in this room, and we're all gonna succeed. And that's it. I get really manic, because that's it. That's it. We just gotta keep going. We gotta keep persevering. I mean, we're all different. It's like poetry couples, I think, are like the world. Like the world is trying to be, everyone's trying to be themselves, and everybody gets jealous. And instead of just, being upset with one another, let's just all flourish and like make room for everybody to flourish together.
Like, she's really good at like a lot of things, so it's like, she can make bread, and like, she can like write fiction and criticism. It's like all of this stuff, like just the ability to kind of like see these things, and like just kind of fluidity. I just have like poems, and I think I can drive. Like, so it's not like territorial or anything like that, but it's just like, there's like Shrino, it's like here come my Shrine's poetry books. It's like she just so many things that, so I'm really like, and like I admire like that capacity, right? And yeah, it's just maybe men are just limited in general. It's just like I have like the one trick, it's like this is like my thing. But just the there's always that anxiety, like when your careers like develop at different pieces, like things don't like happen to you like at the same time. I think they're like what's so nice is like kind of how like the long art, like the see things that come on, it's the idea that like we both have like books and deals, and it all seems ridiculous, right? Like you sit down and you say, I think I'm gonna be a poet. Like, is that like an attractive thing? Is that like what you want to hear your partner say? It's like, I'm gonna be a poet, and it feels like it's gonna take after like who in this like situation, right? So there were a lot of like lives taking place, relationships taking place, it's like a series of like functions. Right? It is absurd to like publish a book, or hope that like you might even like be invited, to like all of these things. In the abstract, it seems so absurd. I think we appreciated being able to like witness other people kind of respond to it as like individually. So then like we never thought of ourselves as like a poetry couple. Like we love poetry individually and we're together. So it like makes us like a poetry couple. So it's like when we got this like email, it's like, so are we a poetry couple? Is that like how we branding ourselves like a poetry couple now? Like do we need t-shirts?
This is totally this should be on the camera on.
Yeah.
This should be on camera. We met them, William and I met them at Red Loaf like 100 years ago. All the people who were couples were stuck in a cabin together. Well, yeah. And then when I saw Shrink today, I go, do you remember me? You love me. And she's like looking at me like, oh no, am I reading poetry today? Yeah, that's how we met.
We were together the couple of seven. I think, yeah, when you were asking about him, I remember that, you know, early on in our relationship, Mom really loved to watch the sunset. He liked to sit and watch and linger and wait for, you know, the 45 minutes or so, you know, for the sunset. And this was something he wanted to continue to do, even as we had children. And so I remember being somewhere on a beach and he was just trying to meditate and daydream about the sunset. And I started like running all over the place, and, like kicking things, you know, where people are trying to eat on it, or sticking that to their food. I'm like chasing after them. And I'm just the boy like running around. I was just like, you know what? No more. There's no more time. No more with the sunset. You know?
Cross it off the list.
And I think but that was kind of warning to him because he was remembering this sort of meditative state that I think was generative. And so a big challenge for the both of us was figuring out how were our writing practices going to have to change, you know, and we would sometimes do retreats and things like that. I remember we went on this retreat in Italy and I was and both the kids, and a ton of stuff happened. And my mom needed to help and all this. And he was so, because I came in so productive. I wrote so much. I'm like, if what you need is a writing retreat in Italy, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work, right? So I think you figure out these negotiations and things you change. If you're like, and I wrote it as a part.
Like first I thought like I lost my capacity to daydream, like when we had kids, it's like, you know, I was always in and out of the world, right? Like all this, even before I like knew anything about poetry, like, you know, it's just what I'm brain word. But you know, you look away and a child goes right for the electrical, you know, like chords, right? Like they'll fall out of the chair. So it's just like the strangeness of like really paying attention because that's somebody's life, that's good. And it's like, well, how do you write? I didn't know how to do it. So that idea that, you know, there's always like the, you know, like the balance, like in the couple, and you know, and then managing like the strange like guilt too. It's like you do something because somebody is like hoping you do that. So then, you know, it's not transactional. Like it's not like, but we had to really like figure out like that balance. So that is something that kind of get into us. And if you want to go, just figure that out. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks for braving the rain. What we're trying to do, thank you, Brittany, for the comment. What we decided back in August, or earlier, was to really think big about our local library. And really place in this gorgeous library, which already does tons of stuff. But we really did want to bring a range of writers into our community and encourage our local writers community to come out, support, witness, study, listen, you know, learn how to get off the mic and really just understand that the real relationship is between you and the art form. And that there are accomplished people who are better than you know, who are masters at what they do. And we wanted to showcase the mastery of just a sliver of this robust Southern California poetry landscape. It is incredible. I've lived here since '92. I've been super lucky with the little stages, the bride patch, to be able to spiral outward into so many different communities. And you know, when Carl and I were selected to do this, and we began sort of shift into place to slot ourselves and think as mature artists ourselves, but also as two people who never worked together. But fundamentally, we sort of found this common ground. It seems to be. But I do want to say I do get sort of first position because they call me the editor-in-chief. So I'm going to take a beat and just close this evening and say this. We are absolutely standing, you know, at a time when we need all of our language workers. We need all of our dream workers. We need the people who are not afraid to keep right in the crevices of the difficulties of what it means to be an American, a citizen, you know, a safe person, you know, in our society. And we need to have courage, and we need to stop, you know, tiptoeing, and we need to stop allowing, you know, the top-down debasement of language. And so for me, when it was Carla's idea, she said, oh, we have some colors, and we just started riffing. And of course, we wanted to have more, but we didn't have the budget, but we did want to have men and women who really represented some of the scope of the art, the creative writing field in Illinois. So we ask you to just imagine, you know, replicating this wherever you are. You know, the couple thing is a riff, you know what I mean? But bringing people together is not a riff. You know what I mean? Bringing people into the deep exchange. You know, and I'm gonna say this as I close. Terry, I want to thank you. You know, you've been sending me a poem at the end of the year or the beginning of the year for 20+ years.
Wow.
She sends a poem out to her mailing list. And it's a card, it's on a card. And it's always drop dead, like, when you finish it, it's like, whoa, this is like the end of the year, and this is the way it started. So, anyway, thank you guys. Did you have anything you want to talk about?
I just want to thank you all. It's been such a. Thank you for going with it, even if you didn't know what the hell to talk about.